everyone to today's family caregiving webinar. And if you are not a family caregiver, you are still going to benefit from learning all of the information from our guest speakers today. My name is Carrie McClellan. I'm the outreach manager for ElderHelp. I also help to facilitate our family caregiver support program, and the webinars are a part of that. So I will hold off on introducing our speakers for just a moment because I would like to just share briefly about ElderHelp so you have an idea of who we are, and then I will introduce our speakers to you. Before I do that, though, I forgot to mention that if you have any questions throughout today's webinar, please feel free to type them in the question pane, and we will answer those likely at the end of the presentation so that we can go through all of them. You might find that the answers are within each presenter's topics, but if not, then we will be happy to go through those at the end. So don't feel like you have to hold on to that. You can type it in and we'll go through those at the end. All right, so if you're not familiar with ElderHelp, we are a local nonprofit organization and we support older adults who are continuing to maintain their independence in their own home. And that's really their goal, that's our goal. So all of our programs are geared around that. We have been supporting the San Diego community for over 48 years now. We have a variety of programs and services that we offer directly to older adults. Our information and referral service. We also have a variety of check-in call programs. Our Seniors A Go-Go is our transportation program done by volunteer drivers. Our care coordination program has social workers that are involved as well as volunteers who help connect our clients to social activities and grocery shopping and all of those types of activities that they benefit from to be able to maintain independence at home. We have a variety of programs through our housing services team. One to highlight is our home share program, and that is essentially a roommate matching service. So if a home provider has an extra room in their home, they're looking to rent that out, we can help them find a suitable match who could pay rent to be there or provide services in exchange. And then our family caregiver support, that is where this webinar is coming through. We offer online resources through our webinars as well as courses that are all available at no cost for family members who are caring for a loved one and looking for resources or assessment tools that can help them in their journey. So that's where these webinars come in through. We partner with Alzheimer's San Diego as well as Southern Caregiver Resource Center. So collectively, we're reaching more family caregivers in our county and beyond to make sure they have the resources needed. We do provide information and referral service as well. So if there's a need of somebody, we're happy to connect to the right resource. All right, and it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker. So Jami Shapiro, and here we go. She is the founder of Silver Linings Transitions, a San Diego-based company. Silver Linings Transitions is a senior and specialty move management company that's been in business for 7 years, specializing in senior moves, downsizing, moves due to divorce, and home organization. As someone who comes from a family of chronically disorganized people, she has firsthand experience in seeing how having too much stuff can be a challenge, both for safe living and the mental toll downsizing can take. In her talk, Downsizing Made Easier, How to Lose Your Stuff Without Losing Your Sanity, Jami's favorite motto when it comes to organizing is perfect is the enemy of done, and addresses the reason so many people become overwhelmed when it comes to downsizing. And it's definitely an honor to introduce Jami Shapiro. I will hold off on introducing our next speaker for the moment, but Jami, welcome, and thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and the work that you all do. It's so important that we serve our seniors. And, you know, and I think part of being a senior and aging is downsizing and going through your belongings and looking at your life and trying to figure out what you're going to do with everything. And so I'm hoping that after today, you'll have some really good information. I do the talk both for two audiences. I do it for people who have to go through the downsizing process, and I do it for caregivers and loved ones. I'm going to gear it today for caregivers and loved ones, since I believe that's, where this is, who our audience is. But, obviously, if someone's here and listening and they are going through the downsizing process themselves, a lot of this will still be applicable. So I'd like to tell you a little bit more about Silver Linings Transitions and who we are and why I am an expert, so to speak. So trying to get to the next slide. Okay.
Okay, you should have it now.
Okay. Thank you. So as Carrie mentioned, we're celebrating our 7th anniversary, and that's something that I'm very proud of, because starting a business from the ground up is hard work, and we've earned a really great reputation in the San Diego community, and it's because we've got a team of really wonderful, compassionate people who guide our clients through the experience of downsizing and moving. And I think it's important that we share our values with you, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what we do. So we always try to make the experience of downsizing fun, if that's at all possible. And we have integrity. So if we find something of value, we're going to bring it to our client's attention. We all have background checks. We try to go above and beyond to get to know our clients, to find those little things that will just make the experience that much better. We work as a team, and our heart is there. Our team, our clients feel loved. So what is it that we do as I'm talking about all of this? So we're basically senior move managers is the majority of what we do. And I find, unfortunately, we can't interact in this talk, but I find in most conversations, 1 out of every 10 people have even heard of a senior move manager. And I think if they knew that our industry existed, then a lot more people would make a move, because they stay stuck because they just don't know how they're going to go from a large home to a smaller one. And go through a lifetime of belongings. So our process and how we work is that we typically, once someone has identified where they're going, we want to do a floor plan, and we do a to-scale model. This one that you can see is just a little mini version, but it's a to-scale model of exactly how the furniture is going to fit. We take into mind whether someone needs a walker or a wheelchair, and it's an easier way for us to do the move rather than having the mover bring all of the furniture in and then try to work with the plan. We handle all the logistics. We coordinate the mover. We schedule anything that needs to be scheduled if there's an elevator. We help sort, which is kind of what we're going to talk about here today. We do all of the packing, we do the unpacking, but the difference is, and imagine this, if you hired a moving company that not only unpacked, but also organized it and put it away for you so that the night that you moved, you could sleep comfortably in your bed. We decorate, we put things up, and then most importantly, we help you sell or discard your unwanted items. And that is a process that we're going to talk a lot about today. All right, and just like to show you, if you are here, then these are signs that you have too much stuff. And I'm going to go through this quickly so I have enough time to really get into it. Your home feels crowded. You don't know where to start. You have trouble finding things that you use often. You still have items that are in the bag or they still have the tags on them. You have no idea what's in boxes that you've got packed. You've got surfaces covered like this one in this picture. Your clothes are overflowing, and you're paying for storage, which 1 out of every 10 people pays for storage. In fact, the majority of Americans cannot park 2 cars in a 2-car garage. So we have a lot of stuff. And then when you are entertaining, you have to clean before you can have people over. So those are signs. Okay, and I think that one of the reasons that it's really hard for us to let go is that when we let go of our belongings, a lot of time it's facing a reality of something that we aren't going to achieve in our lives. And I'll give you an example. I registered for China when I got married, more than 20 years ago. And unfortunately, I went through a divorce, and I was needing to go through the marital home and take the belongings out that I was going to take with me. And one of the big ones was the china. And I had I have 3 children, and I went to them, and none of them, 2 of them are in college and 1 of them is still in middle school. But I said, do you think any of you are going to want this china? And just like all of you, the answer was no. And I was really sad about it. I was really sad about it. It had one of them wanted it, that would have been the easiest thing to do. And if you are a caregiver and your loved one is offering you things and it's easy for you to say yes, even if you don't want it, one of the first pieces of advice I can give you is just say yes, unless it's going to be a hardship for you, because it's going to make it easier for your loved one. Especially, this is going to be an emotional process anyway. So if there are, things that you can say yes to, do. And I encourage people to make what's called a legacy list, and that is to identify the 10 items or fewer in your life that mean something, like why they're important, who gave them to you, what you do with them. And I think when you identify the most important items and why they're important to keep in a family, and then you share with your loved ones why you want those things, they're more likely to say yes. And then you've also pared down what's important. But back to the China story. So I ended up, what I would have wanted to do was go ahead and pack it away and store it for one of my children to have it one day, but none of them wanted it. And I could have sold it, which, by the way, if you don't know, and I think it's really hard for people to hear this, but your stuff might fetch 10% of its value if you go to sell it. So often it's better to do something meaningful with it than to feel like you didn't get as much money as it was worth. So I encourage you to donate the items either to a charity that you really like, or to donate it to, or what I did in my case was I posted my china on Facebook. And I put it out there so that anybody who knew me, I didn't go through the marketplace. I went on my personal page and I just said, this was my china, and I am no longer going to be needing it. For me, I didn't want to take the china from my marriage into my new space. I wanted clean energy, and I didn't want to remember, that to me, I saw that china as a failure, because back to aspirations, I envisioned when I registered for that china when I was getting married that was going to be, something that my children and we were going to sit down at the table, and we were going to have our Thanksgivings, and we were going to have our holidays. And when you get a divorce, just like seniors who are going through the downsizing process, you're forced to look at your life and the reality. And sometimes you didn't achieve all of the things you wanted to achieve. And so releasing these things and letting go of those old dreams is a courageous act. So anyway, I ended up finding a family who had gotten married during the pandemic, didn't get the big wedding, didn't have the china, and I was able to give it to them. And I felt really, really good about it. And I also, especially when it comes to the dining room, and if you think about it, we are just living so differently now than we did before. And it used to be that the dining room was the place that we all, gathered around, and we had the family dinners, and it was what everybody aspired to. They wanted the good china and the good crystal, and it meant that you had achieved something to have this great dining room table that you could then pass down. But we're not living the same way that we used to, which is also a reason that our loved ones don't want our things. That's why creating that legacy list is so important. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about how Silver Linings is your guides and what you need to know to get through the downsizing process. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is your goal, and that's your why. Oh, sorry about that. Well, okay, I just wanted to give you an example of some of the work that we did. Probably this was a before and during the process and after, and it looks like this is only the second time I'm doing this new version of my talk. So apologize for that. Okay, so the goal, why are you downsizing? If you don't know your why when you start out, it's going to be hard for you to go through the process. And the same is going to apply for your loved one. If they are not on board with it, it's going to be very hard to go through the process. So having a discussion about why it's important to you that they go through the downsizing process. And I always tell people, when we pass away, we don't want our loved ones to take on the burden of our things because they're mourning and sad. And I know that's what happened with my own family. My grandmother died unexpectedly. My mother didn't want to throw anything away, and so she brought everything into her home. And my mom actually has hoarding tendencies. And so that just created a bigger problem and more depression. So it's another reason why we want to have those conversations because a triggering event can bring on hoarding disorder. And so letting our loved ones know that it's important to us that we deal with these things together will save a lot of heartache in the end. So getting them on board is really important. Knowing the time frame and also knowing how you want to live is really important. I love the Peter Walsh example. He talks about when he does downsizing. I don't know if you guys remember Peter Walsh. He used to be on the Oprah and the Rachel Ray show. And he used to go in and do those makeovers. And he said 100% of the time, so that means every single time that he ever did a child's space, their first reaction when they came in was to dance. So I think that's a really important thing that we remember, is that freedom that we feel. And clutter is actually really detrimental to our mental health as well. And then understanding your reality. You know, why are you holding on to the possessions? Are they realistic? In this case, this was a house that Bryan and I helped the client. They sold and were moving into a senior community. They were going from having, I think, a 3-car garage to no garage and a carport, but they wanted to hold on to 6 coolers. Well, I mean, are they going to be entertaining and doing the things that they used to do? Not really. So that's why understanding your reality is really important when you go through the downsizing process. Okay, and identifying items of significance. So I shared with you a legacy list. I think it's really important that we do note those stories that are important and those items that are important, and we let our children know. There's actually a great website that you can use. I'm happy to share that resource later. It's called Artifacts, and it's spelled funny. With Carrie, but you can also just document those items, write them down, and take photographs of them so that those stories live on. And also just letting your loved ones know the significance. And for me, these items were my personal items when I went through the downsizing process. They weren't things that necessarily were family legacies, but they were important to me. So I wanted my children to know what they were, give them an opportunity to take them. You can imagine that nobody wanted my old prom corsage. So I was able to photograph that and discard it. And but it's also very, very important that you make your intentions known, because I always say people that weddings and funerals bring out the worst in people. I remember my own family when my aunt passed away, and I had 4 cousins, and they fought over her belongings. They were grieving. There was a lot going on. The police had to be called. So make your intentions known so that everybody knows, you know, who's getting what, and there doesn't need to be any strife when that happens. Okay. Decide and designate. Okay. One of my things that I did when I was going through the downsizing process that I highly, highly recommend is that you gather your loved ones together and you do a show and tell of those items so that they understand the significance of it. And again, make your wishes clear. I like to share the story of the lamp. I want to make sure I have enough time for Bryan. But my grandmother passed away unexpectedly, as I mentioned, and I was a little girl when she bought that lamp. I should also note that I was her only grandchild, and she always told me that that lamp would be mine. And when she died, my uncle decided that it should go to a favorite cousin, disregarded that my grandmother had told me, and I did not get that lamp. I'm pretty persistent, which you can't tell in 20 minutes, but I did eventually get that lamp. But that's why I tell people that if you don't make those intentions known, then nobody knows what's going on in your mind. But I loved doing the show and tell with my kids. It was a great opportunity for me to force them to sit through my stories. And so you can do it on a Mother's Day or on a birthday. And what's great now that we know we can do it on Zoom, and you can get the packing supplies and have the stickers, and you can start going through those items if they can't all gather together, and give your items to loved ones while they can enjoy them and you're around to watch. And silver linings can also help if you want us to come in and help with those family show and tells. And then executing the plan. I will spend a few minutes talking about that. And there is a handout. I'm going to fast forward to show it to you and then come back. Okay, so this is your downsizing guide. It's got a lot of the resources that I'm going to discuss. That is something that Carrie will be able to share with you. But when I mention the flyer, you'll know what I'm talking about. So let me go back to executing the plan. So once you decide what you are wanting to discard, then I'm going to give you some tips on how to do it. So first of all, if you're holding on to items because of the value, I think the most important thing is once you decide what your goal is and be realistic about your life and identify those important items, then you need to ask yourself why you're holding on to things. Like for instance, that china that I was holding on to, although it was in great shape, it had great value, it was not something that was going to make me feel good. So to borrow a page from the Magic Art of Tidying Up, which a lot of people have heard of, that best-selling book, it's really important that when you identify and you're touching those items, you figure out if they spark joy. And if they do not make you feel good, then that is a good reason to release them. So a lot of times people will hold on to things because they feel like they paid a lot for it when they bought it, or they think there was a perceived value. So I always encourage people to look the items up on eBay. Don't look up what's listed, but look up what's sold, just like the real estate market, so that you get a good sense of what things are selling for. And you can also use something called Google Lens, which is an app you can put on your phone, and it will let you take a picture of it, and then you can figure out, you know, what the item is, where you might be able to buy it. It's super helpful for antiques and things like that. It's not, you know, it's hit or miss because it is an app, but I definitely think it's helpful. But I always tell people to look things up on eBay. And then if you decide that there is an item that you don't want, but you want to keep it out of the landfill, some of my favorite things to do are to put it on Craigslist Curb Alert, where you post it on Craigslist, you put free, and it's pretty easy. If you go into Craigslist and you've used it and you just type free or curb alert, you'll come up with a list and you'll be able to post it. There's also something called freecycle.org, where if you have craft supplies or something that is really good, but you don't want it to, and you want to know that it's going to somebody that will appreciate it, you can post it on freecycle.org. You can also find things for yourself. Our company has done wheelchair and walker decorating events, and we found craft supplies so that we didn't have to buy new craft supplies. There are also hyper local groups called Buy Nothing on Facebook, which I think are a great way to get rid of things. Also, a lot of people like Nextdoor, and then of course there are charities. And we try whenever possible, you know, to avoid landfills. And what are the best sites for selling items? That flyer that I shared with you has the best sites per certain categories. I find for me the best one for safety reasons is Facebook Marketplace, because you have some sort of trace about who that person is. I know I covered a lot of information, so I'm definitely, when Bryan's done with his talk, we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. But lastly, settling into your space. So identifying areas in your home that feel right and recreating them if you're moving to another space. And then maximizing the space that you have, or repurposing things. So for instance, you could take a really buffet and put a TV on it, and then you've got storage. So don't think that the furniture that you're using has to be what you're using it for, especially when you're downsizing. It can be used for other purposes. And I think also creating systems for things that you do regularly will help you stay organized. And I should have stressed more in the beginning how important it is to live in a space that's clutter-free, especially if you're caregiving for somebody, because there's so many studies on how much detriment it is to have a lot of clutter around you. And when you're in a space that you can breathe in, where things are organized, it's going to be easier for you to handle the things that come into your life. And speaking of handling things, one of my other favorite takeaways that I can share with you is we are a checklist society. We love to check things off. So I always recommend that you write down all of the hassles in your life that and I'll give you a good example. When we all ended up on Zoom to do work or to interact with anybody, I had a computer cord that, you know, I would charge my computer during the day, and then I would not really be on Zoom, so I wasn't sucking up my battery. Well, what happened was these Zoom calls were taking so long that my battery was depleting, and I was having to, like, you know, sit near a wall and recreate spaces so that I could continue to charge my battery. Well, then I'm like, you know what? I can buy a longer cord, and that's a hassle. And now I'm not, you know, stuck to a wall anymore. So that was a hassle. Another one, whenever I did laundry, I was always going through the closets and getting all the spare hangers. Well, that took me time. Then I went and bought new hangers so that whenever I do laundry, I've just got a pile of hangers right there. So that's another great one. So I am at my 20 minutes. I've already shared flyer, and I believe it is time for Bryan.
Well, thank you so much, Jami. I always learn something new, and I wrote notes myself. The legacy list and the show and tell, I will be incorporating those into my life. I love that. So thank you so much. And we will open it up for questions at the end. So hang on to those. So now I have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker, Bryan Devore. Bryan has been serving the real estate needs of his clients for over 18 years. Working with both home buyers and home sellers, he ranks in the top 0.5% of all Berkshire Hathaway home services agents nationwide. Bryan specializes in guiding seniors who are transitioning from their homes and into smaller homes or senior communities. Realizing that these clients typically need additional levels of service, Bryan partners with other professionals who make the process simpler for his clients. He is the director of the senior division of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services California Properties, and currently serves on the boards of 2 local nonprofit organizations dedicated to improving the lives of seniors. Bryan is a certified trust and probate specialist and was recently named one of San Diego Business Journal's influential leaders in real estate for 2021. Bryan was born in Los Angeles, attended college at the University of California, San Diego, and when he is not serving his clients, he enjoys spending time with his fiance and his 2 sons, ages 19 and 21, hiking and watching sports. I love that you included that, Bryan. So without further ado, take it away.
Great, thank you, Carrie. I appreciate that. So welcome everyone, and my stuff isn't quite as cool as Jami's stuff. She's got a lot of really good tips and everything, but a lot of times when seniors are downsizing, that could mean that they need to move into a smaller space. Maybe they need to sell their home and move into a senior living community or a boarding care or whatever the situation is. So my topic today is to talk about choosing how you will live your next chapter. And as Jami did, gearing towards the caregivers, we will kind of do the same thing as well. So let's just jump right into it. I'm clicking. Why am I not progressing?
Hey.
Carrie, do I have the controls?
Hold on. Yeah, yes, you do. Let me just do it one more time. Let's see. Okay, try it again. There you go. I think.
I can try and see if I. No, I can't do it.
It worked the other day. There we go.
Oh, did you get it? Perfect.
Looks like it. So our discussion today, and I don't know why it's delaying. So we'll talk, it seems to be working. We'll talk about the current real estate market, a study of what people want when it comes to the next chapter, and then how to live the next chapter. So let's talk about the real estate market. How is the market right now? Well, in a word, it's crazy is a word, hot is another word. Here is a chart that shows the median sales price for homes in San Diego County. This is for January, and it's still pretty current. You can see over the last couple of years since the pandemic began how prices have gone up for single-family detached homes, for attached homes, and then year to date, you can see that how the numbers have really jumped up quite a bit for single-family detached homes and single-family attached homes. The reason why that's happened is because people have wanted bigger spaces, so the demand for homes has gone up quite a bit. People moving here from other parts of the country, and a limited supply. And so the next slide, we'll look at the supply. Inventory of homes for sale since the pandemic began has plummeted. 2,241 single-family detached homes down to 719. And for attached homes, 609 to 182. There's just not enough homes for people. So the market really has gone crazy. So for those people who are considering selling their home, now may be a great time, course, it's difficult if you're also buying a home, but if you're maybe moving into a senior community or boarding care or with family, it may be a good opportunity. So what do seniors want when it comes to how to live the next chapter? There was a group, the American Advisors Group did a study, and they called it the importance of home, and they polled 1,552 people ages 60 to 75 of how they wanted to live. What did people say? Home versus community. What percentage of seniors answered that they would prefer to live their later years in their current home? 92%. So that's quite a bit of people prefer to live at home than to maybe move into assisted living. 8% answered they would prefer to live in an assisted living community. So seniors do, in general, want to stay at home. Question, of course, becomes, can they? And that's a broader discussion, as we're not going to have time to get into right now. 62% of people have an emotional attachment to their home. 40% cite independence as the biggest benefit to staying home. 25% cited happiness next. And then there's a picture of some family. 56% said home reminds them of family. What percentage of people, Jamie, you're the only one who I can hear, so you want to guess what percentage of people want to live with family when they are in their golden years?
Oh, I would say a lot of people want to, but they probably know that it's not realistic for them to do that, that would probably not be good in our society the way that we are. So I would say want to live with family would be like 98%, but actually will, okay, well, there you go.
68%. So a lot of people do. I mean, that's still a pretty high number. The question is, how many families want their loved ones to live with them? And that's kind of a challenge. Here's the biggest thing that I look at. The percentage of people who have shared their wishes with their families is only 68%. Now I say only because it should be 100% of the time. People really should share how they want to live their golden years, with their loved ones, so they know what their wishes are. But unfortunately, we are in a little bit of a society where we want to bury our heads in the sand and not really admit that that's what's coming. And so I think it's important to definitely share the wishes with their loved ones, families, friends, whatever. So living your next chapter, the different options, of course, are remaining in your home, and that's definitely an option. Selling and moving to another home, or selling and moving to a senior community. So those are generally the three options. If staying in the current home is the way that you want to go, then you would look to make modifications to the home, adding ramps and grab bars and things like that. There's lots of companies that do that we partner with that can help with those types of things. Hiring home care. As you get older, of course, and we have caregivers here, so we all understand that seniors do need more care for the activities of daily living, dressing, bathing, feeding, things of that nature. Paying for modifications and care, that comes into play. How are those things going to be financed? Does the person have the money readily available? Maybe a reverse mortgage, so the different options. And support and socialization, and that's super important. One of the things that we see is seniors not having socialization, and so they start declining. They have memory decline and other physical and mental issues because of that. So we think it's super important, even if you are going to stay living at home, that you get the support and socialization to live your best life. Weighing the cost of home ownership. And I think this is very important, that when people say they want to stay in their own home, and that's great, but they don't always take into account things like maintenance and repairs. If the roof is starting to have some issues, or the plumbing or the appliances, those things cost money. Those should be considered. Utility expenses, property taxes, those still have to be paid. Now, if the person has been living in their home for quite a while, the property taxes might not be super high, but it is an expense to consider. And the opportunity cost. What else could the person be doing with the money that is tied up in their home? There may be other ways to spend that money or use that money. Is your home right for you? And Jamie talked about people not really living in the dining room anymore. This was a few years ago where they did a study. They tracked people. I forget how many they tracked, but generally, where are people living in their home, and not just living like in their bedrooms, but where downstairs, so to speak, are they living? And of course, as to be expected, family room and kitchen were the tops. But dining room, one person wandered into the dining room by accident, I guess. A couple people in the living room, the bathrooms, of course. But yeah, the dining room not being used, living room not being used nearly as much as the other room. So how much home do you really need? So when people want to stay at home, but is it that 5-bedroom home that they really need? Maybe something to think about. So selling and moving to another home obviously has some benefits. More manageable layout and space. Hiring home care is still something you'll need to do. Financing the home and care, that still comes into play as it did with staying at home. And support and socialization, again, when you are living at home, that is something to keep in mind. Or selling and moving to a senior living community. The benefits of moving to a senior community: more manageable space. If you're only having to manage 1 or 2 bedroom apartment or a den or something like that, it's a lot easier to get around. You don't have to take care of as much. The care is built in to the community if you're in an assisted living situation. You do get the socialization and activity, which is a huge plus, and no cooking, no cleaning or maintenance. Jamie and I like to joke that we're ready to move in now. I don't want to cook, I don't want to clean, so that could be a really good opportunity for the right person, the right situation. And there are different senior community options. There's independent living only. There are communities that have independent and assisted living. You have independent, assisted, and memory care communities that are sort of all in one. And then you have something called a CCRC or a buy-in community versus a rental community. So there's a lot of other things to unpack here. We'll be glad to explain more in detail offline. So there are 3 home selling options that we do provide for our clients if they are considering selling their home. The traditional sale, and we'll get into each one a little bit more in detail in a moment, the Renovate-to-sell program, and the as-is certain sale program. And one of the nice things is no matter which option our client chooses, we provide free downsizing services provided by Silver Linings Transitions with all 3 options. So all of the downsizing services as far as floor planning and space planning and packing and everything else, all those things are included with our program. So let's briefly talk about each one. The traditional sale, this is what everyone kind of considers the regular home sale process. The home is ready to go on the market, or it's nearly ready, so it's in pretty good condition. Home is staged. We'll either provide real or virtual staging for the photography, and we have a complete marketing package for our clients to help them get as much as they possibly can, and we escort them through the entire process. The Renovate-to-sell program I love this program. For our clients who have homes that maybe need a little bit of work or a lot of work. We have clients whose homes are very clean and nice, but extremely dated. And buyers who are looking right now want that HGTV type home where it's been completely remodeled. So through our Pinnacle Concierge service, we provide a free design consultation where we have a professional come in and spec out the home and see what the home might need to get it up to snuff to today's standards. From paint and carpet to a full renovation, and then the home is sold the traditional way. So we get the design consultation, all the work is done, and then the home is sold in the traditional format. The best part is all costs are paid after close of escrow. So the person does not have to come up out of pocket with the money to do the renovation. For a lot of our clients who don't have the money, they might be, so as we say, house rich and cash poor. This is a great opportunity for them to get top dollar. The last one is the as-is certain sale, and this is a good opportunity for people who maybe have a home that just needs so much work that the Renovate-to-sell program, wouldn't work for them. The home is sold as is with minimal inspections and no repairs. The condition of the home really does not matter, and no appraisal or loan concern. So it's an all-cash transaction. It can close in as little as 10 days, but the sales can close on your timeline. So for those clients who are pretty much done with their home, they want to just move on to the next chapter as quickly as possible, or the home, like I said, just needs so much work that it just does not make sense to put it on the market or try to do a renovation, this is a good option for our clients as well. And it's an arm's length transaction. I'm still representing the client, and not representing the people who would be buying the home. I bring in multiple different opportunities to get the highest price we can given this model. That's my spiel. So I know we threw a lot of information out at you, and there's my contact information as well. Carrie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bryan. I know that was just scratching the surface, so I'm sure that there are going to be a lot of questions, whether on today's webinar or after. And I will go into the questions, but I just want to thank you both again so much for your time today to share your expertise. I have known Jami and Bryan for several years now through the senior community, and I always appreciate and value their input on things. So I will share their resources in the follow-up email. So you'll get a recording of the webinar that you can share with anybody who wasn't able to attend today, but you'll also get their contact information. So if you do have any specific questions you want to follow up with Jami or Bryan about, you're going to be able to do that. And let me just go in and see that we had a question come in. I don't see any questions. Does anybody have anything? You're welcome to type them in the question pane.
I guess we did such a good job that no one has any questions.
I know. They're all probably taking notes and trying to to gather all the information. I have one. Bryan, are you seeing that there are quite a few people who are looking to downsize and move into senior communities right now during the pandemic? Have you seen that decrease, or have you seen that kind of increase, or is it picking back up? Just curious.
Yeah. So in 2020, it really just kind of shut down. In fact, we saw more people moving out of communities and moving in with family than moving in. And then it seemed like once everybody started getting vaccinated, the floodgates opened. And Jami and I were so busy last year, and it's continued. We had a little bit of a slowdown when Omicron kind of reared its ugly head, but for the most part, it's been super busy. I think what happened is some families who took their seniors in realized it's a lot of work. The sandwich generation were trying to take care of their seniors. We're also trying to take care of their kids, and that was hard. And we did see a lot of seniors decline, in mental capacity during that period of time too. And so, unfortunately, we're seeing more memory care communities are welcoming people in. But I think people realized that they wanted that socialization and they weren't getting it home. People relocating from other parts of the country to be near family. So there seemed to be a lot of movement in that respect, and for the most part, yeah.
I would also, add that seniors are in like the best position to take advantage of the market because they don't have to compete to buy anything. So I think that there's been a trend also for younger people who might not have even gone into communities, who are going because they, that's like the sweet spot.
Yeah,
definitely. And Jami, it looks like there's a question for you about how to organize arts and craft supplies.
Oh, I love it. Well, first of all, a label maker is going to be one of your best friends because then you can actually put everything together. And then I think also having boxes that are uniform in size. And then, being realistic about what you are actually going to use. And I am very guilty of this. I jokingly say, and although the hoarding disorder, there is no joke, but there are people that are craft hoarders, which is something breaks and they put it aside and think, oh, I'll use it for this one day, or I'll use it, and then they're not really going to do that. So being realistic about what you're saving and, and sometimes passing those crafts along, put them out into the universe, like I said, with free cycle or next door or buy nothing. And then just know that when you need it, you will get it back. But, paints and things that are old and, those can be easily gotten rid of. But I think anything that we do when we break a task, that's why I said perfect is the enemy of done. Break a task down into manageable pieces so that you're not trying to do too much at once, and know that it doesn't have to be perfect. And I think that that's what people, they become so stuck because they are overwhelmed by everything they have to do, and then they think it has to be done perfectly. So hopefully that was a good answer.
I love that. We have a comment, not a question, very helpful information from one of the attendees. And then the next question is for you, Jami. They said, great program. Does Silver Linings Transitions service the Fallbrook community?
We do. Yes.
Very good.
As far as LA, actually. So.
Oh my gosh.
I think that if somebody wanted to pay us to travel, we'd probably go pretty much anywhere.
Because of the gas prices, right?
Very good. And I just pulled up the next slide about upcoming webinars. So if you're interested in either of those options, on the one side, those are upcoming through ElderHelp. And then we also have one through the Caregiver Coalition that is a group of different senior service organizations that come together to educate the caregivers in our county about different topics. And so that one is highlighting a specific topic coming up later this month. I don't see any questions coming in, so we may have answered all of them.
Wow.
I know, and I'll just move to this last slide while we wait to see if there's any final questions. But anybody who has any general questions or looking for resources, feel free to reach out to us at ElderHelp. We definitely refer to other organizations if there is a service or an interest in something that we don't provide directly through our program. So we rely on organizations like Silver Linings Transitions and Bryan Devore with his realty expertise to be able to connect people to all of those services as well. So if you have any questions that come up later on, feel free to reach out. Again, I will share a recording of this webinar that you can pass along to anybody in your life that might be able to benefit. And I will also include the additional resources and handouts from Jami and Bryan. So it doesn't look like anything else. Oh, maybe there's something. One other question, it's asking probably for both of you if you're available for live presentations at senior buildings.
100%. Yeah, we'd love to. We have fun doing it.
I know, now that things are getting back into person a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Well, I want to thank you both again, Jami and Bryan, for spending the last hour sharing your expertise, and I will definitely share your resources, so please feel free to send me those. And thank you all who joined us today, and be sure to send us your questions if you have anything afterward, but we hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.